from AI being powerful and being used by people and controlled by people. And then there's a completely separate risk, which is AI itself becomes the bad actor. This stuff gets smarter than us. We've created an alien being, or many alien beings. They can communicate with multiple copies of themselves much better than we can communicate. So people don't really understand this might just be a much better form of intelligence. If you take multiple copies of the same neural net running on different hardware, each copy can look at a different bit of the net, can figure out how it would like to change its connection strengths to absorb the information in that different bit of the net. And then they can all talk to each other and say, why doesn't everybody change by the average of that? And every copy will have now benefited from the experience that all the copies get. Now imagine if 10,000 of us can go to university, each person does one course, and every few seconds you communicate with your buddies, and everything you learned, they automatically learn. So you each do one course, and at the end you all know what's in all 10,000 courses. That's what these things are like. It's a better form of intelligence because it can share, and that just makes it very scary. People haven't really absorbed yet that we're creating alien beings that might just be a lot better than us.
Is it true that, in fact, the neurological, if I can call it that, approach was in disfavor at one point, but Canada was the place that people like you came to because it was much more popular here? Is that true?
There's some truth in it. So there's three researchers in particular, me and Yoshua Bengio and Rich Sutton, who all came to Canada because this research was funded in Canada. And Canada funded quite modest funding for the basic research, but sustained for a long time. And that got very good graduate students like Ilya Sutskever to do their research in Canada. That made a big difference. It wasn't just Canada, but Canada punched way above its weight in getting the basic research done because it funded basic research driven by intellectual curiosity. It didn't put huge amounts of money into things that were going to be immediately applied, which is what the politicians always want to do, because then they can say, look, we're doing this. Politicians don't get up and say, look, we're funding basic research, and in 20 years' time, this might have a big payoff. People aren't interested. But that's what Canada did. It did have a big payoff. The same thing happened with the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry is basically based on research done to understand the structure of DNA and proteins that was done out of intellectual curiosity in the 1950s. That led to this huge pharmaceutical industry. Similarly, the research, people studying neural networks and trying to understand how the brain computed, the research they did led to what we're seeing now, but it took a while.
And that neural network approach is dominant, is it not, in the field at this point?
It's more or less completely taken over, yes.
I have heard it suggested that recognizing that is the dominant model and will be, that bringing back in what I think of as the symbolic logic part of it could actually help govern the neural network approach.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. So I have an analogy for that. Suppose you believed in gasoline engines, and someone comes along and says, electric engines actually work better. Eventually you're going to say, okay, I believe you, electric motors are good. So what we're going to do is we're going to use electric motors to inject the gasoline into the engine. That's what that approach is. They're trying to save their old symbolic approach by sort of putting it on top of neural networks, which are doing the real work. That's not what we need. They've been saying for years, we need to make a hybrid. But if you look at all the progress, these chain of thought things where you can see what they're thinking, they don't think in some strange symbolic language, which is what AI people expected. They think in English. They have a string of English words, and you can see what they're thinking.
So as you've followed the discourse since you received the prize, what's been missing? I mean, you say that there is more talk about safety and things, but what are we all missing that you would love to get out?
There's a couple of things that are really missing. One thing that's missing is the general public doesn't understand the risks. And I think that's one of my missions, is to get them to understand. If you look at what happened with controlling the big energy companies, the public had to understand about climate change. You had to get scientific consensus, and then the public had to understand. And then the public provided pressure on politicians that opposes the pressure from big energy saying there shouldn't be any regulations. What we've got at present is big AI is saying there shouldn't be any regulations. I mean, they say they're in favor of regulations, but whenever you suggest a particular regulation, they're against it. We need the public pushing in the other direction, because politicians will go wherever the pressure pushes them. And if they're just hearing from the lobbyists of the big AI companies, they'll say, you know, regulations are terrible, they'll interfere with innovation, the Chinese will get ahead. The public has to understand what these risks are to provide pressure in the opposite direction, particularly all the shorter term risks of people misusing AI. Then there's the appreciation of the longer term threat of AI itself taking over. And very few people really understand that emotionally. Even I don't really understand it emotionally.
We've talked about the enormous investment being made right now in data centers and all the ancillary phenomena. Is it possible that the markets could end up being something of a brake on development of AI? If in fact, this turns out to be something of a bubble, which some people are talking about right now, overinvestment, the return on investment doesn't come as quickly or as large as we thought, people become disillusioned. Is it possible there could be some disinvestment that would slow it down?
The first thing to say is anything's possible, right? Nobody really knows what's going to happen. These are strange times. It might slow it down a bit, but you have to remember that you're already using lots of AI. AI based on neural nets actually works very well. It's useful for many, many good things, like reading medical images. It's been slower than I thought for it to completely take over, but it's very useful for that. Lots of radiologists now have AI assistants. It's not like it's speculative that people are hoping this stuff will work. People know this stuff already works very well and it's going to work better. So it's not a bubble in the sense that, hey, this isn't really going to work. It works very well, and that's why it's not going away.
You won the Nobel Prize in Physics for your work on generative AI. How has that changed your position, your ability to speak out on issues? Have you been able to influence the discourse because of that position?
It's made people listen to me more. I got to talk to Jon Stewart, probably because I got a Nobel Prize, and I've always wanted to talk to him. I actually even invented a new term. So you know what mansplaining is?
Yes.
So when you got a Nobel Prize, you can do knobsplaining.
That does it for us here at Wall Street Week. I'm David Westin. See you next week for more stories of capitalism.
Welcome to Laura Flanders and Friends, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it.
This is how change happens in this country, when vast numbers of people come together and defend a vision of the future.
If we do nothing, we'll be looking at apartheid in America.
Learning about the past has really no value if you're not going to apply it for a better future.
If you take a moment, you can see the world change.
Massive attacks using missiles and drones.
Stories that link all of us. make sense of our lives so we can move forward, widening horizons.
I'm David Weston. Join me for the next generation of Wall Street Week, telling stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. Each week, we'll go on the road for a look at what lies behind the headlines of today and what will likely be the headlines tomorrow.
Above all else, it's a mission.
Done nothing but grow immensely. To me, that's an extraordinary sign.
We can be the change that we want to see.
Watch the all-new Wall Street Week. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
For generations, the Yurok people have brought fire to the land.
Fire is medicine for the land.
But in my lifetime, it's been outlawed.
Margot Robbins is fighting to restore this ancient tradition.
We are part of nature. It will take care of us, but we in turn need to take care of it.
Fire 10 on Local USA.
The following program contains content which may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
President-elect Nixon today named Dr. Henry Kissinger, the German-born Harvard professor, as his White House policy